Ladies and gentlemen, it is the start of a new week, and I come with some massive Nintendo Switch 2 updates, rumors, and leaks. I'm talking about some huge stuff, potentially a new console, huge updates coming to Nintendo Online like different services, GTA 6 on the Switch 2, and much more. So let's go ahead and get right into this video. Yeah, it's like, whoa, the Nintendo Switch 2 is doing what it does. How much more can we get surprised? Well, apparently, or allegedly, or potentially, we could get a bunch of big surprises, and that's what we're talking about in this video. But before we do that, I have to show you this really cool video I found from Shigeru Miyamoto.
同じぐらいの値段で売れるようになりました。これは新しい技術を使ってるから。だから 9800円ぐらいで64メガビットっていうロムが出ます。
Yeah, you should probably subscribe. I mean, that's what he was saying to do, right? So before we get started, if you could hit a like and subscribe, that would truly mean the world to me. Also, follow me on Instagram and Twitter so we can keep these communities growing. And let's just go and get right into this one. So first, let's start with some official Nintendo updates. That's right, when I say updates, I mean real updates. So from going from 2025 to 2026, like the fiscal year for Nintendo permanent employee headcount increased by over 300 employees. And you may ask, well, why is this important? Because when you look at the rest of the industry, especially heavy hitters like Microsoft and Sony, and then all the subsidiaries and everybody who falls underneath them, every single day you are seeing companies lay off not a few employees. I'm talking about hundreds or sometimes even thousands of employees. We see development studios closing almost monthly as well. And unfortunately, even when a game does good, we still see companies shut down. So it's just nice to know that Nintendo, at their own pace, is still increasing people in-house, and it just bodes well for the future of the Switch 2. And in response to that, you might say, well, even though they're hiring people, that doesn't mean that Nintendo, still can't like fall off, or I guess they can hire people and then fire those people later. And that is true, but we need to take into account this next remark I'm about to say, because Nintendo is officially giving raises to all of their employees, and it's not a small raise either. An investor noted that Nintendo does not have a labor union and wanted to know what the company is doing to reward its employees. Furukawa responded that he feels it's important for Nintendo to maintain an appropriate level of salary and compensation. Accordingly, the base salary at Nintendo Japan is being increased by an impressive 10%. So this is very good news for the industry, or in the industry, when a majority of the other industry, it just seems like they can't be sustainable. And to wrap up these smaller updates, the Nintendo Switch 2 ends the first full year in the United States at nearly 6 million units sold, which is the second fastest selling video game system, at least in America. I don't know about of all time. I don't know how this is, gauged or whatever. So what's interesting is before clicking the article and reading more into it, I just guessed the second fastest selling system. That's pretty impressive. So it came into second place behind the PlayStation 2. At least that's what I assumed, right? The PlayStation 2 is the best selling console of all time, and it dominated. Even back when it came out, I remember people camping out and trying to get it, and it was selling out everywhere. But clicking into this article, it was in fact not the PlayStation 2 that the Switch 2 is in second place to. It's actually another Nintendo console. And when you hear that, you think, well, the Nintendo DS, it has to be that. That's one of the best selling consoles of all time. But again, that is actually not correct. The only other platform to outdo the Switch 2 was the Game Boy Advance at 6.5 million units in 1 year, which is strange. I love the Game Boy Advance. I have a Game Boy Advance SP on the shelf behind me. It's one of my favorite consoles. I just feel like, I don't know, man. It feels weird sometimes when you look back at stuff. Like, I feel like people had them, but maybe at the time they weren't so popular. But I guess I was a little kid and I was just dumb as shit. So at least the Switch 2 is in second place. Now, I feel like I can read the future a little bit, right? And why do I say that? Because I made a video last week that not a single other person made a video about. Nobody else talked about this. At least, I don't think so. And that was a video I made about the Nintendo DS coming to Nintendo Online, right? I searched and I found a new trademark, and I'll be showing that on the screen right now. And it was for the Nintendo DS, and this was a new trademark. Not only was it a new trademark for the Nintendo DS, it just seemed like some kind of service or something, right? At least that's what it seemed like. Not even like 2 days later, during that investor meeting with Nintendo, this topic kind of came up. And in my opinion, I think this all but confirms this is coming over to the Switch 2, possibly sooner than later. So in that recent shareholder meeting, a shareholder said, "Will you make Nintendo DS or 3DS games playable on the Switch 2?" Furukawa said, "I can't answer your question specifically, but we are working to make our valuable back catalog playable on current hardware wherever possible." Yes, he's being coy and kind of beating around the bush, but that's what you do in a shareholder meeting. You don't lay out all your cards right now, because then there's no point. Like, they know what's happening. You kind of let stuff play out how it goes. And with a new trademark, and with them talking about this, and with it just seeming like it's going to be the next console in line, well, I just think it's going to happen. Now, if we follow patterns and I do a little guesswork, this isn't something that Nintendo would just announce randomly, like, hey, we're also adding the Nintendo DS and you can also buy the screen. I think it needs to be like a whole thing. So we're probably going to have another Nintendo Direct in September or October, at least, again, doing some guesswork here. And I think in the last big Nintendo Direct, like not the one this month? Yeah, not the one this month, but maybe September of last year, that's when they announced the Virtual Boy, which I called a month before that was revealed as well. I said this is probably going to happen, and it happened, just saying. So yeah, this next September or October, I could see them announcing the Nintendo DS, also announcing a second screen accessory, and I think that's the biggest issue right now. The Nintendo Switch is getting a $50 price increase, which I believe starts in August or September. At least I think so. I could be off on some of these dates. So maybe they've been working on the screen for a while, and the screen was going to be $150, but now it's got to be $200, or I don't even know. I don't even know how you would price something like this. Maybe they don't do a screen at all. Maybe they just work out some way to have both things on the screen at one time, like the screen splits in half on the Switch 2. I really don't know. I'm sitting here like at a loss for words, but I just don't know how else you would do this without having a second screen attachment. But regardless, the fact is, I think Nintendo DS is coming to Nintendo Online this year. Now, let's talk about Grand Theft Auto 6, right? Which is pretty much taken over the internet, which, this is all expected. A lot of you guys have been messaging me like, are you going to play Grand Theft Auto 6? Are you going to be picking it up? Yeah, I am. And whenever it comes out, I'm going to be buying the deluxe edition. Because in my opinion, the deluxe edition is the real edition, unfortunately. Like customizing cars and characters and a bunch of other dumb shit. But it's Grand Theft Auto 6. It's a game you're going to play for at least 10 years. Like me, I've been playing Grand Theft Auto 5, beating it almost once a year. So I'm sure I'm going to play this game for a long time. But where am I going to play it, right? As it stands right now, the PlayStation 5, which is probably going to be the best place to play it. But what if there was another option, Xbox, sure, but what about the Nintendo Switch 2? And I know this seems far-fetched, like it's not possible, but my question is why? Why would it not be possible on the Switch 2? So let's check out a new leak for GTA 6 on the Switch 2, and then we'll talk about it. So this leak is coming from Nash Guido, who is responding to himself. And in November of 2025, he said, "I can confirm work is being done to port GTA 6 on the Switch 2, blase blase." So now he says, GTA 6 Switch 2 update. Technical hurdles. Hurdles is such a weird word. Why does that sound so strange? Have been overcome. Specialists in Switch 2 ports have been brought in via subcontract. They keep telling me it won't arrive this year. More insiders confirmed to me that they've also received information from their sources about this port. So before you say, oh man, that's Nash Guido saying this, and I get it, like I do get it, right? I understand who the source is. You also have to remember that Nate the Hate said like 6 or 12 months ago that he knew for a fact that there was work about GTA 6 being ported on the Switch 2, that they were testing it on the Switch 2. Now, that does not mean that it's coming to the Switch 2, because GTA 5 was tested on the Wii U, and we know that never showed up. And I have to imagine they also tested it on the Switch, and again, that never showed up. But they did, in fact, try to get this running on the Switch 2. And again, we have to look at where else this is coming to. If Grand Theft Auto 6 can run on the Xbox Series S, and as far as I know right now, like it's still coming to the Series S, why could it not run on the Nintendo Switch 2? Now, if we were going back a year ago, you would say, well, look at all these other games that ran on the Xbox, and those aren't coming to the Switch 2. That was before we got some massive games like Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and we're getting Revelations Day 1, and Monster Hunter Wilds is getting a port. So I think Grand Theft Auto 6, with some tweaking here and there, and some asset changed, and some textures rearranged, and some people taken out or whatever, I just think they can make it work. And why would they not try to put the resources in to get it to work when at the time of Grand Theft Auto 6 coming out in November, the Switch 2 will be at like 25 million consoles sold, right? That's 25 million more potential sales that you could have for Grand Theft Auto 6. So it's starting to seem like it's really going to happen. And I've seen some other sources saying that it's also going to happen as well. I just don't know those sources that well or kind of understand what the hell they're talking about. But I don't think we've heard the last of Grand Theft Auto on the Switch 2, and I expect some bigger updates coming very soon. Now it's time to look at a new patent that I found from Nintendo, and it's actually 2 patents, and both of these patents together make me think a few things, right? So what this is for is potentially a screen or some kind of console, something new. And then the second patent is something to do with audio. When I first read these patents, I thought, oh, this must be updated from the Switch 2. But it doesn't look that. And when you see these patents, you'll know right away this is not for the Switch 2, because when you look at patents for the Switch 2, it just looks like a Switch 2. Like there's even 2 buttons right here. You can always tell if it's for the Switch or the Switch 2. This is not for the Switch or Switch 2. And I kind of feel like this could possibly be for that Nintendo DS attachment, potentially, or something, but this is very interesting. So looking at this electronic device, this looks nothing like the Nintendo Switch or the Switch 2. So I was thinking, what if this is for a screen and this screen is for the Nintendo DS attachment, or maybe this is for the Nintendo Switch 2 Lite, something, I'm not really sure. And after reading some of the technical terms, essentially what this is for is some kind of screen or device, and they're trying to find a way, or they did find a way to make it easier to be able to cool down. And they did that by moving some of the chips around, some of the cords, the ports, pretty much rearranging stuff and making it easier to cool. But we have a second patent, which I think is kind of attached to this first patent, and this is for new audio. And in the technical terms for this, it's working on different kinds of 3D audio, specifically like when an object passes you, as that object gets further past you, the sound will get quieter and quieter, but sometimes the sound will get quiet too fast and it just feels a little weird. So they're working on like making different kinds of sound to make it sound more realistic as something's moving past you, or maybe they're making it louder. They're just working with 3D audio, and both of these patents kind of coming out together, it just feels like, okay, there's going to be this new device and they're working on cooling it differently, and it doesn't seem like the Switch or Switch 2, and then this device will also have different kinds of 3D audio. So maybe this is that second screen. They're working on cooling that second screen, because that second screen probably wouldn't have a built-in fan, or maybe it would, I'm not really sure. And then what kind of audio would that second screen have, or would the audio only come for the Switch 2? I'm not really sure, but what I do know is there's something interesting brewing. We're probably going to see some of this stuff this year. But ladies and gentlemen, what do you think about this? Because your opinion matters most, so in the comments below, I would love to hear from you guys. Truly, we talked about a lot, so let me know what you guys are thinking. And if you made it all the way to this part of the video, if you could do me a favor, hit a like and subscribe on the way out. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter on the way out, and consider becoming a channel member, as that is the ultimate way to support. And you guys know me, I'll see you very soon with a new video. Peace.